Good evening. I have to be somewhat quiet because I'm not at my own house and I'm at somebody else's house and we're in a townhome, so I can't yell as much as this agitates me. There's a very important lesson we all have to learn, and we, I mean Americans. And a lot of you know this, but many of you don't. So I think we need to get a little bit of a lesson, a little bit of a spanking out there to a lot of Americans. And that's the difference between sales and profits. Okay? Now, these two words are different. They're not the same. And they go by other words as well. Sales can also mean revenue, and profit can also be earnings or income. And the accounting vernacular jargon isn't important. What is important is we're just going to use sales and profits and focus on the key difference between the two. Right? Sales is the total amount of money that you or a company takes in. I'm selling books, okay, or this pen. I sell you this pen for $3, a very nice pen. And you give me the $3. Well, I did not make $3 in profit off of this. I had to pay for the actual pen to be manufactured. I had to pay for it to be shipped over here. I had to pay for the raw materials. I had to pay for the labor and the employees and the sales staff. Everything that costs money, all the expenses I had to pay to go into selling you this pen is deducted from that, subtracted from it, and whatever's left over, that's the profit. Now, this is a simple concept in business, but when it comes to individuals, they like to blur the lines. And even companies like to blur the lines. For example, I teach a class on stock valuation. And one of the first assignments I have my students do is grab an annual report of a company. Now, these are publicly traded companies. And some of these companies, they're not rookies. We're talking like GM, Procter & Gamble, and all this other stuff. These are, not to say that these companies did, although I will say GM did do it. But these are not stupid companies. They have accountants, they have professionals working for them. And I have my students list the first sentence of the letter from the chairman to the shareholders. And if they ever do mention numbers, usually it's not some flowery corporate social responsibility, going green, eco, or law lovey-dovey, Coke commercial BS. But if they ever mention numbers, it's usually the sales. And they always say, it's been another great year for the XYZ Corporation. Sales increased 23%. And I'm like, I don't give a flying bleep. It's non-cursing week still. I don't give a flying bleep what your sales are. I don't care if sales drop by 50%. The only thing that matters to me as a shareholder or a potential investor is what happened to your profits. That's all that matters. If your sales drop by 80% and your profits went up by 5%, that's great. It doesn't matter what your sales are. All that matters is profits. That's the only thing that matters. Now, publicly traded companies, they know that Americans are stupid, and so they sell you on touchy-feely stuff. Like I always get people like, look at Whole Foods. All these people investing in companies because they're going green. When you look at it, they're really not. They're usually just using the label green or eco or whatever to get people, naive people, to buy their products and buy the stock. But it's more important, so these companies are being hypocritical. But it's more important when it comes to the individual. Because just like companies have sales and profits, so do people. And this comes into where how much money you make. Okay. Perfect example, I'm working in banking. These so what I choose to do this video, because I need cursing to describe these people accurately. These vermin, these scum, these real estate developer types, these businessmen, they would always brag about how much they had in sales. And they would pass that on in terms of how much they made, as if that was their take-home pay. When in reality, looking at their tax returns, looking at their income statements, they were losing money. They were poorer than the waitress working for minimum wage, getting tipped only 10% on a bad night. That girl had a higher net worth and a higher income than these guys did. But because they can use sales and business expenses, inevitably they'll file for bankruptcy. It's a game. It doesn't last forever. They can make it look like they're rich. They can act like they're rich. They can act like they're actually making that amount of money. Inevitably they don't. They all file for bankruptcy. So I want to go over some of the individuals you will see who are typically going to lie to you about how much money they make when in reality it's their sales, and 9 times out of 10 they're losing money, right? First ones, real estate developers. Those guys, oh yeah, real estate developers. Oh, hey Jim, oh, let's go to the golf. Let's take the boat on Lake Havasu. Those guys, typically bald, middle-aged, fat white guys. Not to bring race into it, but that's typically what they are. And you really got to look out for them, especially you girls, because these guys are like thrice divorced. Their wives divorced them for a reason, because they realized that these guys really are scum and they're not making any money. It's all moving money around from one group to another. It's always going to the bank. The thing you got to ask is, like, if real estate developers, and it just doesn't narrow it down to real estate developers, but all these business type guys, these wheeling and dealing business type businessmen. I'm a businessman. I got a bar. Look at how much money I made. Did you pay your employees yet? No. But these guys you got to look out for, especially you young gals out there, because they will make it seem like they're making millions of dollars. Their company will in fact bring in $4 million. And they'll say, yeah, I made $4 million last year. When you have to learn to look at a tax return and income statement to realize that they spent $4.5 million and they're actually about to file for bankruptcy and they're about to lose the house. So that's one group of people. Another one, tradesmen or construction type guys. Not to slam on men in the trades. I do like those guys. But there's a lot of them out there. They'll be a tradesman, they'll be a plumber, they'll be an electrician, they'll be a construction worker, whatever. And they'll say, well, I could do this on my own. And they'll go ahead and they'll try. And they'll totally underestimate, sometimes they won't even have an accounting system, to measure and track their expenses. And so sure enough, they go into business for themselves, and they get some stupid magnet, and they have shirts printed off, and they'll get a magnet they put on their truck, and they gotta buy a fancy truck, gotta get a truck. I'm a businessman now, I'm a businessman. They won't even file an LLC, they won't even set up a legal entity, they don't have any accounting system, and all their money, they'll go and they'll bid out a contract. And they'll say, oh yeah, bid it out for $25,000 here, $50,000 there, $75,000 there. And over the course of the year, yeah, you know what? They might have $500,000 in contracts. But because they don't know the first thing about accounting, and they're lazy on top of it, usually these kind of contractors give other contractors a bad name, you know the type. They find out that they're losing money. They don't find out, they realize there is no money left. And they don't know why, because I don't even grant them or charter them with the ability to do accounting. Right? So you gotta look out for those guys. They usually have like a Harley or a fancy car or a truck they can't afford, and then all of a sudden, the house can go, the kids can go, the toilet can go, the cats and dogs can go, but boy, that truck or that sled or that Harley's got to stay. That's again, not to slam on people with Harleys. I know people who have Harleys and are good people. I know tradesmen. I'm just saying you got to look out for the bad ones. Right? Salesmen. A lot of guys, well, I'm a sales regional executive. I worked in sales. These guys, I went to a wedding one time. I mentioned this before. And look, I know what it takes to afford an S-Class Mercedes. I know what it takes to have enough income to afford the luxuries in life. Not because I have them, but because I've worked my way up just to sustain myself. And when I see a kid who's 25 without parental support driving a car that costs more than my house, there ain't no way in hell he's done it. Salesmen, especially these young douchebag frat boys with their hats on backwards, those guys. Yeah, man, let's get hammered, yeah! They're sales. They got their suits, and you just get that icky, slimy feeling when they talk to you. Those guys will act, again, well, they won't act, they will say, yeah, I made $10 million last year. No, you made your company $10 million, and you got a commission of maybe 1%, which is admirable, that's $100,000. But then to keep the appearances up, they got to buy the suits and the Armanis, the fancy car, have the coolest downtown condo, the most tricked out system, blah, blah, blah. Recession comes in, no sales, they don't make quota, boom, they're fired. And then kind of like the gal with the businessman, who used the business, I'm in real estate, I run a business. The salesman comes home, dear, I can't afford the lease. They don't even own their car, they lease their car. They don't even own the car. And they don't even own their condo, they're renting that. They don't own anything. It's kind of like boilerplate or boiler room. It's kind of like that. So you gotta look out for those guys. And then let us not, usually this is a guy thing, I admit that, but there's another group out there, and that's the successful career woman, right? Is she successful? Yes. Is she a woman? Yes. Does she have a career? Yes. But by God, you give a gal 100,000, as I've said before, they'll spend 120, right? This is not so much an attitude thing. These women actually do earn that money. They actually do have a take-home pay after taxes of, say, 80,000. That's not exactly the same thing I'm talking with these guys who claim their income falsely. It's that these women spend way too much money, more money than they make. And so even though they make all this money, again, with the Jimmy Choo shoes, with the Prada bags, they got to have a fancy car too. 9 times out of 10, you see that successful career woman. Is she more successful than you? Yes. Do you have a higher net worth than she does? Probably, because she's pissed it all away. And trust me, there's no shortage in my little consulting world of women who, are very successful and they've made great money, great careers, and outstanding in their careers, and a true you-go girl. But they still have college loans because they racked up credit card debt. I mean, we're not even talking good debt, which would arguably be like a mortgage for a house you lived in to save on rent. Even that's debatable. It's crap. It's crap. They buy all this crap. So, and let's not forget Flirtini's at $12 a shot. So, in any case, the lesson to all of you out there, because when you spend more money than you make, or you claim you have this amount of money and you don't make any money, that is the only cause of all financial and economic problems, is people and companies and governments spending more money than they make. But this arrogance and ego thing, companies and individuals alike, where you claim to your sales is what you make, please have a cup of STFU. Still not swearing. Seriously. I mean, not only are you a hypocrite and you're lying, in the end, you're going to lose. You're just going to lose. Because you can't keep it up. It's not sustainable. It just isn't. But to pawn yourselves off as like these successful people, you're losers. You are freaking... I saw it in banking. I saw all these millionaires come walking in. Not millionaires. Insolvent. Losers. And then for you to arrogantly drive around in luxury cars that aren't even yours, and it's so fake. You cannot be... Even women in LA's tits are not as fake as yours, as your career, or your net worth, or how much money you make. Right? So everyone learn a little bit of accounting, everyone learn a little bit of intellectual honesty, and learn to do an income statement. You have your revenues, take out your expenses. That's how much money you make at the bottom. I know it's all feelings and emotions in the United States, isn't it? We don't want to... I'm a party pooper, right? I'm hurting your feelings. Is that what it is? I'm just mean. I had a girl link to me. He's mean. Why are you so mean? What, because I'm telling you the truth? You know what's meaner? Lying to someone for 30 years and then reality catches up on them. And then, since they've been lied to so long, they don't know the difference. They're truly delusional. So, anyway, that's all we got. Just want to share that little accounting lesson and then tell all you frauds and fakes out there to go fornicate yourselves. Toodles.